I've been driving snowplows for the Minnesota Department of Transportation for a long time, long enough that the job stopped feeling like a job and started feeling like a rhythm. Headlights, radio checks, the steady scrape of steel on pavement. People think it's lonely, and it is, but it's also simple, and simple can calm you down when the world is too loud. You learn roads by memory, the way wind hits a certain overpass, the way drifts build in the same places every winter, the way your truck vibrates differently on a bridge. You learn to trust patterns. Most things that feel wrong are just old equipment, bad visibility, or your brain filling in gaps when snow turns everything into the same gray blur. That's what I believed anyway. I believed it right up until last February, during the kind of blizzard that doesn't look dramatic on the weather app because it's just a white smear, but on the road it feels like you're driving inside a closed fist. The wind didn't gust. It just pushed and pushed, as if it had decided it wouldn't stop until something gave in. Snow came down so fast my plow could clear a lane, and the lane would be gone again 10 minutes later, erased like I'd never been there. Visibility got so bad distance stopped making sense. A shape might be 50 yards away or 5. Everything was either right in front of you or swallowed. I clocked in at 10, did the usual inspection, the usual radio check, and pulled out onto Route 12. It's a stretch most people only drive when they have to. Dark farmland, a few small towns, long empty miles. The first hour was normal, the second hour was normal. That's what I hate the most about it looking back. It didn't feel strange. It felt routine. A little before midnight, I passed mile marker 47 and saw a car on the shoulder. Black sedan, hazards blinking weakly, half buried at the edge where my plow had thrown snow earlier. Not unusual, people get stuck, people panic and pull over. I slowed down and called it in. Stranded vehicle at mile 47, I said. Dispatch answered with that flat, tired voice. Copy. No report received. Continue route. We'll log it. So I kept going. I didn't stop. Policy says you don't stop alone in zero visibility unless there's a person in immediate danger, and the hazards were on, which meant someone wanted the car seen. It didn't feel like an emergency. It felt like a note in the margin of the night. Then, around 1 a.m., I saw it again. At first I told myself I was mistaken, because storms do that. They smear distance. They chew up signs. They turn the roadside into a repeating pattern until your brain starts filling in what it expects to see. So when my headlights found a black sedan with weak hazard lights blinking on the shoulder again, I tried to be sensible about it. A different car, a similar color, another driver stuck in the same bad luck. Then the marker slid into view in my beams, crisp for a heartbeat, before the snow swallowed it, and the number punched straight through my excuses. 47. The same number, the same place, the same angle of the sedan as if the road had copied and pasted it. Route 12 doesn't loop. Nobody had passed my plow, and in that visibility, nobody could have. Not without me seeing it. Not without the world announcing it with taillights and spray and the stupid human noise of movement. I slowed until the truck shuddered under the weight of its own caution and pulled over anyway, because confusion is a kind of pressure and I needed to release it somehow, even if the release was stepping out into a blizzard that felt eager to take me. The cold hit like a slap. Snow hissed against my jacket and crawled into every seam. I walked up with my flashlight up and my hand hovering near my radio like it could be a lifeline. And when I swept the beam across the driver's window, I saw nothing. No face, no shape, no movement. just an empty seat and the pale reflection of my own light. I opened the door, and the inside air was wrong. Not just cold, but dead cold. The kind of cold you only get when something has been off for days, the kind that tells you no one was sitting here a minute ago with their hands on the wheel. The key was still in the ignition. The hazards kept blinking with that patient, indifferent rhythm. The engine wasn't warm. The dash was dark. No radio chatter, no phone cord, no coffee cup. Nothing that said someone just left. And around the tires, the snow lay smooth and clean, not kicked up, not churned, not even scuffed. No footprints, no tracks, nothing. It looked less like a car that had slid into place, and more like a car that had been placed, as if the storm had arranged it, the way a person arranges furniture, careful and intentional. I shut the door hard and backed away, and for a moment the wind felt like it wasn't just blowing past me, but pushing at my shoulders, urging me toward the ditch, guiding me toward the sedan, guiding me toward whatever answer it thought I owed it. I told myself that was adrenaline, that cold makes you paranoid, that night work makes you see patterns where there are none, and I climbed back into the cab, because the cab was a box of rules and metal and routine, and I needed something that behaved. I drove on, and I tried to let the road reassert itself, mile after mile, marker after marker, but the night stopped behaving. Around 2 a.m., I saw the same sedan again at another marker, and then again, always ahead, always waiting, the hazards blinking like a pulse you couldn't outrun. Dispatch stopped answering. My radio hissed, went quiet, then came back as a thin, open tone that connected to nothing, and the world outside my windshield started to feel less like a highway and more like a corridor that only knew one trick. Then I passed mile marker 47 again. I hadn't turned around. I hadn't taken an exit. Route 12 doesn't loop. But there it was, the number flashing in my headlights like it had never been anywhere else, and the black sedan was there too, in the same patient posture, as if it had been waiting for me to finally admit that I wasn't driving through weather anymore. I was driving through something that wanted me to notice it. The next time it happened, there was someone beside the sedan, and that should have made everything simpler. People are real, people are explainable, people belong on roads, but it did the opposite. He was a boy, maybe 10 or 12, hood up, hands sunk deep into his pockets, standing so still that the snow gathered on his shoulders as if he'd been there longer than the storm itself. His coat looked too thin, his posture too relaxed for the cold, and the strangest part was that he didn't try to flag me down, he didn't wave, he didn't look at the truck. He stared at the snow at his feet, like he was waiting for something to rise out of it. I told myself not to stop. I told myself that this is how you end up on the evening news with a headline that says, "Experienced driver found in ditch," because you stepped out for a person who wasn't really there, or because you let your good intentions override your sense. But my foot came off the accelerator anyway. I eased onto the shoulder, cracked my window, and shouted through the wind, "Hey, you okay?" The word shredded in the air. The boy didn't lift his head. I climbed down, and the air around the sedan felt thicker, like a room that hasn't been aired out in months, and my flashlight beam didn't brighten him the way it should have. The fabric of his hood seemed to drink the light instead of reflecting it, and when I took one more step closer, he finally moved, just enough to turn his head toward the mile marker beside him. 47. Then down the road, my headlights caught another marker. 47. For a second, my mind refused to process it. I looked back and saw the sign beside him still reading 47, then looked forward again and saw 47 ahead as well, and in that moment the road stopped being a road and started being a mechanism that was repeating itself. I backed away without thinking, climbed into the cab, locked the doors like a child, and drove forward because forward was the only direction that still felt like a decision I was allowed to make. The markers began to come too often, first a minute apart, then seconds, then close enough that two could be visible at once in the spill of my headlights. My GPS flickered and went black. The dash clock jumped backward, then forward, then backward again. Like time itself couldn't keep a steady signal. The snow ahead thickened until it looked like a wall, and the engine sounded strained in a way that didn't match the speed I was going, as if the truck was pushing against something that wasn't wind. That's when a rest stop appeared on the right, lit and solid and wrong. I knew the real rest stop was miles away, but this one sat there like it had always been part of the highway, its lot neatly plowed in a storm that made no sense to plow anything extra, the building's edges too clean, too certain. I turned in because I needed something normal to hold on to, because even a fluorescent lit bathroom would have felt like a miracle at that point. The door was unlocked. Inside, the lights buzzed softly. The vending machines were dark. The hallway toward the bathrooms was unlit, a strip of shadow that seemed to deepen the longer I looked at it. Near the entrance on the wall was a highway map, and Route 12 was on it, but it was wrong. Town names missing, distances stretched, and mile marker 47 wasn't marked as a point. It was circled, a printed ring around blank white space, and the road line entered the circle and exited it, and entered it again like a knot you couldn't untie. Beneath the circle were symbols that weren't quite letters and weren't quite numbers, shapes that made my eyes ache when I tried to focus. Behind me, the building creaked, slow and deliberate, not settling, not age, more like weight shifting against a wall. In the dark mouth of the bathroom hallway, the boy stood again, closer than he should have been, and when he lifted his hand to point at the circle on the map, the overhead lights flickered once, like a blink, and then he wasn't in the hallway anymore. He was by the vending machines, nearer, as if a frame had been skipped, and my body made the decision my mind couldn't. I ran for the door. Outside, my plow was still there, idling like the last familiar thing in a world that had started rewriting its own rules. I ran through the wind, half blinded by snow, slipped once, caught myself, and threw myself into the cab, slamming the door and locking it as if a lock could mean anything here. I pulled back onto the highway, and for a moment I believed the engine noise and the wheel in my hands could anchor reality, that if I just kept moving, the road would be forced to behave. Then mile marker 47 flashed again. The number hit my headlights and returned the light like an accusation, and my radio crackled with a child's voice that didn't belong to any channel. "You missed it," it said, thin and warped, like someone speaking through a wet cloth. I reached to kill the radio, and the voice kept talking anyway, as if the electronics had only been a courtesy. "You keep driving past it," it said, calm as a rule, patient as a sign that never changes. My truck started to feel heavy, like the road had turned to sludge. I pressed the gas, but forward meant less and less, and the storm ahead thickened until it looked like a wall. The headlights didn't reach the way they had before. The world narrowed until it felt like I was driving inside a tunnel made of snow. And then I realized the worst part. The passenger seat was occupied. I didn't hear a door open. I didn't see a shape climb in. The seat was simply pressed down, and the air in the cab turned thick again, the same unventilated heaviness as around the sedan. I kept my eyes forward, because looking sideways felt like the kind of choice you don't get to take back. The boy's voice came from beside me, quiet, close, certain. "You're supposed to stop," he said. "You saw the car. You saw me. And you kept going." Ahead, the storm parted like a curtain, and the black sedan was no longer on the shoulder. It was in my lane, centered in my windshield, hazards blinking, waiting. It didn't look stuck. It looked placed. "You stop there," the boy said. I hit the brakes. The plow slid, but the sedan remained perfectly framed, as if the world had locked it into position. The truck stopped, and the storm stopped with it. Not gradually, not easing, but instantly, like a switch had been flipped. Wind gone, hiss gone, snow falling straight down. Silence so complete I could hear my own heartbeat, and the faint tick of the engine cooling. The boy opened the passenger door and stepped out. For the first time, his boots left footprints in the snow. Real, deep prints, the kind that prove weight. He walked to the sedan. The driver's door opened smoothly on its own, and inside was pure black. Not shadow, but the black of a hole. He turned back toward me once, and his face was still just a suggestion under the hood, like the world didn't want to render it too clearly. "You can go," he said. He stepped into the sedan. The hazard lights stopped blinking. The door shut, and the sedan vanished, not driving away, not fading, simply gone like it had never occupied a single inch of air. The storm resumed, lighter now, almost normal, and my radio finally crackled with dispatch's tired voice. "Unit 12, check in." Like nothing had happened, like the last hour had been erased the way the missing number had been erased. I finished the route in a haze and wrote my report the way you write when you want paper to hold the world together. I wrote about drifts and visibility and mechanical checks, and I did not write mile 47. I did not write black sedan. I did not write boy, because I couldn't make those words behave on a page. 2 days later, my supervisor called me in and showed me the tracker log. "You dropped off the system for about an hour," he said, pointing at a blank stretch. "Coordinates don't make sense, like you were off-road." I said equipment glitch before he finished, because that phrase is a shield everyone accepts. He nodded, then asked casually, "Why do you mention mile 47 so much in your notes? You keep using it like a reference point." I told him it was just habit. His face tightened. "There isn't a mile 47 on Route 12. He pulled up the official map. 45, 46, 48. A clean jump, like someone had removed the number from the world and smoothed over the seam. My mouth went dry in the same way it had when I stared at that sedan's untouched snow. I searched after that because you search when you can't sleep, and you need something to either confirm you're sane or confirm you're not. Officially, there was nothing. No reports, no record, no documentation. But buried in an old forum thread, I found strangers describing the same thing in the same plain, embarrassed tone, like confession rather than fiction. The repeating marker, the black sedan, the hooded boy, the feeling that the storm was a corridor. And one line, short and specific, that made my stomach drop. "If you see him, don't carry him. Stop. Let him go." Weeks later, I drove Route 12 in daylight. Everything looked normal, painfully normal. 45, 46, 48, no 47. But in the stretch where I knew I had stopped, there was a patch of snow that didn't melt under a utility pole shadow. clean and perfect, like it didn't belong to the same weather as the rest of the world. Half buried beside it was a small black toy sedan, cheap plastic, but colder than the air when I picked it up. On the underside was a strip of reflective tape with 2 numbers, 4 and 7. I dropped it without thinking. It sank into the snow and settled like it belonged there, and in the back of my head, in the same patient rhythm as hazard lights blinking, I heard a child's voice, as if it were right beside my ear. You drove past it again. I still drive plow routes. I still work storms. I still trust patterns because you have to if you want to make it home. But every time the markers jump cleanly from 46 to 48, I feel relief that tastes like guilt. And every time I see hazard lights on a shoulder in heavy snow, I slow down and look twice. Not because of policy or duty, but because I'm terrified of doing the wrong thing again. Terrified that one night, the storm will tighten around me like a fist, the radio will go quiet, and the missing number will decide I'm close enough to remember. Because the truth is, I don't think I escaped. I think I was allowed to go. And I don't know if that's better